Hey, Gator Nation, welcome back to the 32nd episode of the Respect Our Decision podcast. It is March 15th. As always, I'm your boy Hirsch, and with me is the hype man, Wes.
What's good?
And CJ, the man, McCann.
What's going on?
Hey, Gator Nation, another full episode on deck for you. A little recruiting, a little coaching hire finally got done. And of course, we got a couple of spring notes, not a whole lot to talk about on that end. But then, of course, been another great weekend for the Gators baseball team. CJ's going to run all that down and around the bases at the end of the show. And as always, guys, make sure you go out there, download this podcast wherever you get your podcast from. We're available on every platform out there. If you're new to us, guys, check out our YouTube channel, Respect Our Decision. Go ahead, and if you got time, man, drop us a subscribe there. Hit the notification bell so you get a notification anytime we drop some new content. We drop 2 episodes a week, one exclusive to our YouTube channel, our Pod of the People episode, which we'll be dropping later this week. And as always, guys, if you'd like to support us as creators, check out our Patreon, Respect Our Decision. And before we jump into the content, I want to always mention, man, we are partnered with Prize Picks, guys. If you have not signed up for Prize Picks, now's a great time. NBA playoffs coming up. We got MLB is about to hit it full stride. Opening day is right around the corner. XFL, CJ's favorite sports out there, man, drawing all kinds of people.
all 100 of them.
Hey, man, even the Masters is around the corner. Go get some golf action. So use our code RESPECT100 and Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100, man. Go out there and make you some money. Daily fantasy made easy by Prize Picks. All right, boys, we're going to jump right into it, man. We got some recruiting nuggets, a few things, not a whole lot going on. It's the spring. Guys are visiting. I mean, guys are just in and out, man. It's like a daggum fast food drive-through right now. Guys are just coming through, walking the town, out the other side, and on to the next town. A lot of that going on. Potential great news that came out earlier this week is that DJ Lagway will be back in town. What looks to be for the spring game. That's the belief, is that it's supposed to be for the spring game, to be on hand with all the other recruits that are in town, man, making his recruiting pitch, hoping to get some of these guys to join him in Gainesville for the next class. It's always great to see DJ come back into town. It just more and more shows how sold he is on being in Gainesville. He sent a tweet out earlier this week saying, it can't come soon enough that he gets to Gainesville and makes Gainesville home. The young man definitely says all the right things, guys. Don't you agree?
Definitely.
Yeah, you got to love that kid and his attitude and the things he puts out there. Just is attracting other kids and making other kids want to be a part of what he sees. It makes them want to come. Like, what does he see? The highly talented kid in the 2024 class as far as quarterback, as far as players, just period. And if he's loving it down there and putting this stuff out there, then that's going to make other kids like, what does he see? I want to see what he sees down there. So you got to love it from your leader, your class.
Yeah, man. Before we move on to some other names, though, I mean, while we're talking about the quarterback position, we'd be remiss not to mention the new hot name on the board for the Gators for the 2025 class. Hey, when it comes to quarterback recruiting, it's never too early to start talking about that next class. These quarterbacks commit early and they get to work. Excuse me. And the hot name right now for the Gators is 2025 quarterback Austin Simmons out of Pahokee, Florida. Austin currently is number 66 ranked kid in the 2025 class. By all accounts, it's just a baller, and has he took a visit to Gainesville, I believe it was last week, and has had nothing but just positive things to say since. When the wide receiver coach hire was announced earlier this week, which we'll talk about later on the show, he was one of the first kids that actually had a reaction to it, jumping on board and saying, just send out a tweet that said, yeah, with an exclamation point. Just little things like that. I mean, he's a kid that's really excited about the Gators right now. Anything y'all would like to add about that?
It seems that this staff has done a good job of finding, like they did with DJ last year, finding their guy, going after him full throttle. And this is around the time again for 2025 that you want to get your quarterback in early if you can. Um, and this kid seems to enjoy it the same way DJ was last year. Seems to enjoy Gainesville, tweeting out positive stuff. So if you can get him in there early, then you start your way onto the 25 class as well with another leader. You want to get that quarterback in early as you can. So gotta love it.
Oh, definitely. I'd love to get a kid like him. He seems like he's only going to rise. He's still got 2 more years of high school football left to play. Anytime you get a kid from his area, you're talking about an athlete. They just seem to produce great athletes down there in the muck. So,
Muck don't
I,
play.
I mean, I'd love to have him. It's still a long ways off. You're still kind of looking at, when he's going to commit is a little ways, but you do want to go ahead and get your name in there. They gave him his official offer, and he seems like he wants to come back and keep visiting. He's going to be a tough pull. You're talking about a kid that's probably going to get attention from Alabama. He's probably going to get attention from Georgia. He's already on Miami's radar. Florida State's probably going to try to talk to him. So you're looking at a lot of different teams from this area are definitely going to try to recruit him. So he's going to be a hard pull, but DJ was a hard pull too. So I'm not going to doubt it. If this is the guy they want, and they're going to identify their quarterback, and they're going to pick Austin Simmons, I have no issues with it, and definitely they've shown that they can get it done.
Yes, sir. I mean, there's one thing you can't doubt about this staff is they're all over these quarterbacks and years ahead of time. Just once again goes back to you always hear about Billy, how planned and meticulously planning Billy is, and it really shows in the quarterback recruiting as he's looking not just the next year but 2, 3, 4 years down the road. It's who's our quarterback going to be, and hey man, sell it. Like you can't get those quarterbacks in too early. The earlier you get them in, the better. Then they get to work for you. So, all right, guys, we're going to talk about a few big names from the 2024 class that are going to be in town over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Starting off with Jordan Seaton out of Washington, D.C. Excuse me. Number 1 interior offensive lineman in the country, number 41 overall in the 247 composite, is coming to town for a 2-day visit for March 20th and the 21st next week. Big time guy here, currently predicted by Whitphone to go to Ohio State. Not much of a surprise, but I have to say, man, with the way our offensive line recruiting goes, and especially on the interior, I wouldn't put us out of it yet until the kid steps on campus for sure. Any thoughts on y'all from that?
I think that it's really important. Allie Peak talked about it on her show, how much of a benefit it is for us to have 2 offensive line coaches, because you can sell to a kid and his parents that there's not many other schools, if any, that your kid is going to get as much attention, as much work, and have this kind of support anywhere else. He's always got a coach, and that's important. And we've seen that come true with a lot of kids that we've recruited on the offensive line that really kind of buy into that. And I think that that's one of the main reasons we have the 2 offensive line coaches. It is a good sell, especially like I said, to your parents, that he's going to get the best training here. We've got 2 coaches that are going to make sure that he has attention all the time, can always be working on his game. There's never a dull moment. There's never any neglect there, because you have these 2 coaches to kind of go in there and make sure that he's getting all the reps he needs and working on things. You've got 2 different sets of eyes of coaches that are looking and see 2 different things to kind of help out with. So I think that our offensive line recruiting is going to benefit from that greatly. And we're going to start to see that kind of come true, especially in the next recruiting class.
Yes, sir. Wes, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just small amounts. CJ kind of like covered a lot of good points there, and just echoing what he said. This is where you get the 2 coaches. They got to start putting in. I kind of said last year we didn't hit any big name guys as far as offensive tackles, and as that goes, Kearney was a good pickup. But you want to keep stacking talent on top of talent. This guy is a highly talented guy. You have 2 offensive line coaches. They need to get us in this, at least be in the top 2 where we don't know when it's early. And they need to submit a great relationship and start the process of making this kid really consider us as us as a home for him to be able to come to. So I'm looking to see how this recruitment falls out. You got a great quarterback in the class. Offensive linemen want to play for that type of guy as well. So this is where DJ comes in as well. So hopefully we can seal a deal with this kid. I really want him. How I feel about the 24 class. He'll be a great pickup for us.
Yes, sir. All right, let's move on to the next big name. This was tweeted out yesterday that this young man had announced his visits here coming up for the spring. Colin Simmons, number 1 defensive end in the country, number 4 overall in the 247 composite. Big time player out of Texas. Will be in town April the 23rd, the weekend of. This is a huge visit, obviously. You never get too much defensive line talent, and we know that from last class. And, what do you see on Twitter when you log in today is him tweeting at DJ Lagway saying he's getting antsy. And DJ tweeting back at him. Man, you love to see it, but we'd love to see him commit to the Gators more than just a few casual tweets on Twitter, obviously. Any thoughts to add to that, guys?
The fact that he tweeted at our quarterback makes it just echoes what we've been saying and early in the podcast about how magnetic DJ is. For him to say something to him. I was hurt by Keon Keeley last year. I really wanted him in the class last year. Did they say the easiest way to get over a breakup is to find somebody else? So
move on.
If I can get this kid in 24 class, I'd be ecstatic. We know that a couple years ago we were kind of stacked at rush end. This is a guy that can play that side, and we don't have the numbers there like we had in the past. A lot of guys transferred out. The playing time will be there for this kid early. He is the number 1 DN, so that's the type of guy that especially on the D-line, 5-star DN that can come in and contribute right away. So he has to see that, and I just need us to. I want. This is a guy I want. We really, really. I hope that visit really solidifies us as a true contender. I'm scared of the Texas schools, if I'm gonna be honest, with Texas A&M and Texas in the mix. So that's my fear. So I'm not going to get my hopes high. Him being from Texas and having those 2 schools in his top. I don't know if he had a top 8, top 5, top 10, but I know they are true contenders for him because he has visits to them coming up.
Translation: Wes is ready to get hurt again.
Yeah, we stay ready to get hurt in this fan base. I'd love to get him. I mean, obviously that's a huge talent to add. I mean, that would be ridiculous. That would be a monster deal if we could get a guy like him in. And then to speak to the Twitter stuff, at least it really seems like DJ is keeping good on his promise about trying to recruit when he got in here. He wasn't going to just be one of these kind of players who commits to the class and you don't really hear from them. They don't really try to make contact with other kids. They're just kind of staying in their lane. And DJ has all the time been on Twitter trying to talk to different recruits. So that is one really assuring thing for him to be doing that. And like I said, you never know until you get the kid on campus. That's always what I think is get the kid on campus. Let's see where he's at, and then we'll kind of go from there. So let's get him here. Let's see what his vibe is. You could say one thing on Twitter and things change, but let's get him here. Let's get him on campus. Show him what we have to offer. Show him the big, shiny things, and you give him a reason to come back again for an official visit.
Absolutely, man. Sell, sell, sell. ABC, man. Always be closing. Always. All All right, just a couple more names just to throw out there before we move on from the recruiting talk for today. Defensive back Wardell Mack is visiting early in April out of Louisiana. He's number 115 overall prospect in the composite currently. Corey Raymond trying to dig into some of those Louisiana roots he had, bring a kid out here. As it's always a tough pull to get any kid highly ranked out of the state of Louisiana. So, hey, man, take a swing. Hopefully, Raymond works on those relationships he's got out there and maybe gets us one here. Another note, real quick, wide receiver Elijah Moore out of Maryland. He's a 6'4", 190-pound wide receiver. Is also visiting in early April, around the 6th. He'll make a trip down here. He's newly offered a kid that's rising in the rankings. He's currently like a high 3-star, low 4-star, depending on what site you're looking at. But a kid that is currently rising up the rankings and getting some big offers here lately. So I believe that's a kid you'll continue to see rise given his offer list. So get him to come down, take a visit, maybe come down, get DJ in his ear and see what happens. Another one of those, there's going to be some interesting looks here at the wide receiver position. And that's our segue, guys, into our wide receiver coach finally got hired this week. And by God, third time's a charm. Is it? And third time? Billy Gonzales has found his way back home once again. This is a topic I know the fan base is going to be torn on. Everyone's going to have an opinion. They're going to blame Billy for the big slow receivers that we had. And a lot of people are going to be like, well, look at Billy's body of work, and all the guys he's put in the league while he was here in the production, whether it be the first stint he was here with Percy and Lewis Murphy and those guys to, Dallas Baker to, the last run where he was here, we had Swain, Cleveland, Van Jefferson. Tony came out to give Billy G a lot of praise for making him the receiver he is today. And, I mean, you can't really say a whole lot negative against that. I mean, if you look at Tony's career, Tony was not a great route runner for years and didn't take his career seriously for a while there. And
he was a quarterback. He was a quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean,
but even as as he progressed and he was later on, he was still kind of just get him the ball on that swing pass or, an end around or whatever. But that last year he was here, it goes lost in the shuffle. Tony was a very good route runner. Trask was, knew where Tony was going to be and depended on it and would put that ball on a spot and Tony would be there, man. So you can say what you want. I mean, yes, obviously someone like Kadarius Toney has a ton of athletic talent. All his receiving yards were not based on, Billy G's coaching. He made a lot of that happen. But Billy Gonzales has put a lot of guys in the league. And all of those guys, I haven't found one really yet that has come forward and said, I don't really care for the guy. Maybe Percy Harvin. But that's a whole nother can of worms. But guys, what's your opinion? CJ?
I like Billy G. I don't have a problem with Billy G. If we're talking the last great receivers we've had for the last 2 decades, they've all been coached by Billy Gonzales or recruited by Billy Gonzales. So I don't have a problem with bringing him in. I think it's a good, safe hire. It's not a splash. It's not something where you're hiring like an Austin Armstrong, who's a young up-and-coming coach. It's a guy that you're hiring as a proven commodity who's kind of in the later years of his career but has a great body of work and will be able to bring kind of a stability and a seniority to that room. You look at his entire body of work. We're talking Billy Gonzales with the wide receivers he's coached. You mentioned Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney was a quarterback when he came to Florida. So he was going to have a lot of coaching to become a great wide receiver and not just a great athlete. So you saw slowly Kadarius kind of turn into this really good wide receiver who could make these quick cuts and these quick jumps to be a really, really good receiver at the next level now. He wasn't just an athlete. He wasn't just a guy that you throw out there like a kickoff return guy. He became a good wide receiver. And again, it goes without saying, all the other guys that we're talking about, like DeBose and Percy and those guys that came through here, sure, they were all great athletes, and they were going to be great athletes with or without Billy G. But Billy G really turned a lot of these guys into good receivers and great receivers. And then for the recruiting, I know it's kind of people don't really like to talk about it, but Jacob Copeland was a highly rated recruit coming out of high school out of Pensacola, and Billy G was really intricate in making sure that Jacob Copeland came to Florida. Then you talk about Isaiah Bond, who was committed here before Billy G left. So the guy can recruit. And a lot of what the problem with the wide receiver that people had, it's not that Billy Gonzales handpicked all these guys. You can only recruit what your head coach wants to recruit. So now we've got a guy who's like Billy Napier, who is a former wide receiver coach. Now he's going to work with Billy Gonzales. Billy Gonzales isn't going to be able to take a lot of time off or any of that other junk, and just kind of like phone it in. He's not going to do that in this staff. If he does, he won't be here long. And we've seen Billy G, when he's at his best and is giving it 100%, he's a pretty damn good recruiter. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And there's a lot of recency bias that's really going to hurt Billy G. And I think that's really what's the problem with people is they're just looking at what happened, towards the end when he was here. But even towards the end when he was here, people were still kind of clamoring for Billy G to stay. There was a lot of that were like, oh, we need to just keep Billy G. Him and Christian Robinson both were two guys that came up. So I'm great with the Billy G hire. I think it's a good hire. It's a safe hire. It's a guy that knows what he's doing. He's here. He's coached a lot of the kids that are already here. I'm completely fine with it. I know everybody isn't going to be thrilled with it, but I personally really like this.
Wes?
Yeah, people also have to consider the time of year. It's not like it's December or January where you can get a new coach in. Coaches are coaching spring practice right now, and it's hard to steal another coach that's already at a decent school to say, come, hey, do this lateral job move. It's not like you calling him in and say, hey, I want you to be offense coordinator. You're asking a guy that's already been there, like how we got Armstrong. He was a linebacker coach, and we got him to be a defense coordinator. That's not a lateral move. You can't get someone unless you get someone from a smaller school. That's the only way you're going to be able to get that type of guy in here. So, like CJ said, it's a safe move. It's not something like, oh, we hit something out of the park, but it's also not a bad move. I like Billy G. You label some of the guys. I want people to realize that Kyle Pitts didn't work out with the tight ends. Kyle Pitts worked out with the receivers. His development was, as a true freshman as well, was with Billy Gonzales. So his development stuff speaks for itself as far as his resume, as far as getting the most out of guys that were already here, like the Hammonds and the Swains. Those guys were already here before he got here, and he helped develop them. And a lot of his receiver recruits, based off what Mullen wanted, like CJ said, was what Mullen wanted, but they were all 4-stars. Reynolds was a 4-star. Frazier's, who I love, who I think is going to have a breakout year, a 4-star. Henderson was a 4-star that we beat out Clemson for. He's just not the guy that we were hoping for when we got him, but those are guys, all those guys were 4-star. You mentioned Bond from Alabama. He was a different type of receiver, the speedy type receiver, but when he left, we all know how that went when Billy G left and the thing happened with Napier. That's why he's at Bama. But that's a guy that Billy G had in pocket. So people need to stop hating on this. They got to consider the time of it, because the time matters. It's March. I don't know who they think we were going to get at this time of year. And it's a safe hire and a good guy that knows the area and can develop receivers very, very well.
Yeah, one of the biggest, one of the biggest hits I see people talking about with Billy G right now is the guys that he recruited to Gainesville actually doing something. The Copelands, Marcus Burt, guys like that were highly, recruited, that haven't really panned out. But guys, sometimes you got to understand that doesn't just fall on the coach all the time. The kids have to buy in. And we know Jacob Copeland had talent. There was no question that Cope had talent, but we all know that Cope wasn't always, bought in, and Cope couldn't always make catches. I mean, some kids just can't catch. Copeland went up to Maryland, and he didn't exactly set the world on fire there either. Went to the combine and did really well, put up great numbers. He's a hell of an athlete.
There's a lot of. I was just going to piggyback on. If you look at Alabama's roster, they were recruiting 4 and 5 star receivers every year, but they had to go steal somebody from Ohio State.
Well, I mean, it's just you can recruit these guys, but if the kids don't buy in, and let's also not take into account, we got to take into account the atmosphere that Mullen had created these last couple of years. Players across the board weren't buying in on putting in the effort, on practicing hard, on improving their craft. I mean, you could have the best coach, 2 or 3 of the best coaches in the world on your staff, but if the mindset of your entire team is, man, we don't give a shit, I mean, it doesn't matter. Corey Raymond could be out there coaching every day if he was coaching under Dan Mullen. And if your DBs are just like, man, I just want to get out of here and go hang and go do the things I don't need to be doing, that the Alabamas of the world ain't doing, that the kids at Georgia ain't, well, hey. I mean, the atmosphere matters. So we know Billy runs a tight ship. We know what he expects of his coaches. It'll be very interesting to me to see how Billy G coaches. He's inheriting 3 really good young receivers we know of, in addition to the guys like you were mentioning earlier, CJ, that are in the room like he recruited. So, I mean, hey, let's see the product on the field. Kerry Colbert laid down a really good foundation for him. I believe these guys are moving in the right direction. Like we said, we got good young studs like Andy Jean out there to work with. Billy Gonzales is only going to make an Andy Jean better. I fully believe that. So I'm all for giving it time. Now, I don't want to see us start recruiting 6'5", 220-pound guys that can't run. But CJ nailed that.
People are worried about like the idea of all these receivers. Billy G doesn't know what to do with them. Billy G coached Kadarius Toney. He coached Percy Harvin. He coached Andre DeVos. He has no problem with these fast the shorter guys. He hasn't always just coached 6'5" behemoths. I mean, come on, guys. We've seen what we can do with Billy G. We've seen what he can do as far as a developer. I'm excited to see what Billy G can bring to the table with Ricky Pearsall. I'm curious to see what kind of effect he's going to have on him. And like I said, I feel like Andy Jean is going to get better. I know that he's going to do fine with Wilson and Mizell. He's coached kids like them before. It's not like Billy G's coming in here and he's like, all right, everybody who's under 6'1", you got to go. Get out, back up the truck. If you can't block, I'm going to get you. It's like they got you at safety now. Nah, you're coming back with me. You're going to play wide receiver again. That's not what's going to happen. That's not it. Like
Caleb Douglas is about to put up Wilt Chamberlain numbers this year, baby.
Like, come on, guys. Like, it's not like he's just putting them out to pasture. Like, all right, everybody, we signed. You got to go. No, Billy G's going to be able to coach them.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about Ricky, but that's a great one. I mean, Ricky's already got a really smooth game, good route running. I mean, Billy can only make him better. I mean, you talk about a guy that came back that had thought about late going into the draft. It'd be nice to see Ricky have a good year and sneak up, maybe be a day 2 pick in there somewhere. And Billy G can make that happen for him. I mean, he's gotten a lot of guys with less talent than Ricky Pearsall drafted.
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
All right, guys. Well, hey, he's here. He's the coach. Like it, love it, hate it, whatever it is. We're going to have to live with it at least for this season and see how it goes. Hey, I'm all for it. I have no problem with it. Hopefully it works out great. Hopefully we see some some recruiting uptick here at the wide receiver position going forward as well.
Also, one more thing about that before I forget.
Yes.
It's also good because it's left the back door open for David Doker to rise up the ranks.
Precisely. Good point.
So you got a guy like Billy G. Billy G's towards the end of his career. Billy G isn't going to be coaching wide receivers for the next 10 years. That's not going to happen. So you've brought in a guy, you can't bring in a young guy when you've already got another young guy in the wings that you want to move up. So now Doker's going to be able to learn from Billy G, and it leaves the door open to move him up eventually and keep that spot. So I think that's another good reason to hire a guy like Billy Gonzales.
A guy like Doker can talk to recruits while they're on campus and whatnot and build relationships going forward.
That's a great point, CJ. That's a real great point.
It's a very good point, and I had forgot all about that. I had seen that mentioned a couple other places about Doker, that it's a great opportunity for him to stay on this staff, learn under a proven wide receiver coach, and only improve his coaching style.
Exactly.
And possibly be groomed to be the wide receiver coach in waiting, if you will, if that's what Billy believes. I mean, there's a reason Billy didn't straight promote this kid to the position. He knows he's not quite ready for it yet. So
Billy would be a good mentor for him as far as on the field stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you have Billy Napier, like we mentioned before, as a former wide receiver coach. The young man has two really good examples to pick their brain from about his coaching technique. So
yeah, definitely.
It'll be nice to see his development, and hopefully we can keep him around and someone don't come pluck him off the staff sooner than later. All right, guys, we just got a couple of spring notes we wanted to get to. Nothing really out there this week. I mean, nothing, knock on wood. I mean, everybody seems to be doing well, and no injury news as of yet. No news is good news in my eyes as far as spring practices go. I mean, you don't want to hear a whole lot about spring practices, and this is clip watching season. We're all out there watching clips and trying to analyze them from our couch like we're professional analysts here.
5-yard hitches.
Yeah.
And offensive line drills that we think are the defensive lineman drills. That brings up a good point. If you've got to see any of Keonta Goodwin out there working lately, that's a big young man. And him and Damian George, I believe, are going to battle until I think these two boys will probably be battling well into fall practice for who's going to lock down this right tackle position. It's going to depend on how, seriously Goodwin takes the off-season workout regimen and all that and gets his weight to where the staff probably wants him at. He's going to have to show that he wants it not only during practice, but obviously off-season, So, but right now, man, we got some studs on that offensive line. By all accounts, Michael Mazuka is the second coming of of our boy here at guard. He's been a mauler, a go-to guy, very dependable. I've heard nothing but good things about how this offensive line has looked during spring, and that's encouraging, man. I mean, that's encouraging when you've lost the pieces that we lost. Billy made a point to hit into that portal and make sure we got us a couple of good ones, and all looks good despite the loss of weights and, obviously the starters we lost to the draft. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, to back up what you were just saying, we needed depth. That was a concern. So it's good to see those two guys battling out, because it's rare that you see guys finish all 5 starters on the O-line finish the season. So to have those guys battling at right tackle is good to see. I want to see some more from the interior. That was my concern. We know that the offensive line, as far as Mercer's mobility is concerned, he's not the most mobile guy. So he's going to sit back there, read, and make his throws. And you want him to be able to be safe back there in a nice pocket and not have his eyes be looking down because not down at the rush and being able to see the field. So that was my big concern on offense. I mean, I felt good with receivers, felt good, of course, with the backs. It was the offensive line, and so far we're hearing good reports out of practice about the offensive line, so that's good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're looking at. I don't even think the battle will be over with in the fall. I think they'll battle through the season. We saw a lot of that last year of guys rotating in and out of the offensive line, except for Osiris, because
It's a good problem to have.
you can't take Osiris out of the lineup, and I think Mizuka will probably be like that, where you just cannot take him out of the lineup. So I think we're going to see guys that get rotated in and out. I wouldn't be surprised, like I said, Rod Kearney. I still think he's going to find a way to find some playing
Boy.
time this year. I think he's going to figure it out. It might take him a little longer because he is a freshman, but I think that we can still see some from him. So, like I said, it's great. I love the size on the offensive line. We've got a bunch of monsters up there. So, hey, compared to where we were 2-3 years ago, I mean,
Yes,
this is great. I mean, I love to
it's a
see.
great problem to have.
We actually look like an SEC offensive line.
Yeah.
We don't have a bunch of undersized guys out there playing offensive
Yeah,
line.
we don't look like Georgia Tech running the triple option out there with some 265-pound tight ends at the offensive line position. Yeah, the left side of that offensive line is I have no worries whatsoever with Barber and Mizuka. I start to get a little shaky when we get to that center position. I'm gonna have to see it. That young man's gonna have to. He's gonna have to prove it to me from the first snap because he's on a short leash with me. Not that means anything. I get it. I don't have no stroke with who's on that offensive line, but whew, I need to see something from Kingsley. But hopefully he takes the next step. He's been coached now, going on the second season, being coached by Coach Sale and Stapleton. So we want to see some improvement out of him. And then, like you said, man, that right guard, right tackle position is going to be the best man of the week comes in and grabs it. But it's a good problem to have. There's talent. I mean, there's absolutely talent. You've got Farmer, you've got Kearney. I know I'm leaving somebody out on that guard position.
George. Not
George
George.
is going to be at the tackle.
Not George. I forgot.
Yeah.
I can't remember his
See,
name.
we're all brain dead. And it'll come to as soon as we hit stop. So don't worry
got
about
Jones, and you've got Lovett to come in, and Najee, I think, is going to be the backup center.
Hey, get him those reps, man.
I started guard from he started in the bowl game. I can't recall his name.
You're not really helping us there.
Are you talking about Waits? Waits? I don't know if Waits is going to play.
No, he's not. But
I get it.
I know we're all doing the same thing. It's right there, but somebody watching this is or listening to this is gonna be like,
yeah, comment. Tell me how dumb I am.
You idiots! You don't even know the roster. No, I'm just old and I forget stuff. I forget names.
How do you not know the fourth string walk-on offensive guard?
I forget my son's name 80% of the time. Y'all don't get on to me. One other quick note from this week that we heard was said in the press conference is Jadon Hill working at star position. We talked last week about Sharif Denson getting some work at star. Obviously, we know Perkins is going to get some work at star. It looks like this staff is going to say, hey, man, once again, best man that goes out there and puts up the best reps is going to win this position. And I'm all for that. I'd imagine if you're a fan of football, that's how you should want it, though. Hey, best man goes out there and wins the position and then hopefully shows out on Saturdays. But what y'all's thoughts on Jadon working at some star? Wes?
Yeah, I love it. We saw, I don't know if everybody saw that workout with Moore, but he has that other side, and then we already know Marshall's on the other side, so they solidify that. And if something happens with injury, you can always push Jaden back over there at corner as well. So we needed some more guys there. We had a true freshman and then Perkins battling it, and to see Hill there, I love it. I absolutely love it. This is year 2 after his injury, so hopefully you always hear about these knee injuries. It takes 2 years to feel fully back to yourself or get back as close as you can to yourself. You'll never truly ever be the same, even though the surgeries nowadays have gotten as good as they can get. But to see him in year 2 move to that might be a position he excels at. I want to see him tackle better because last year he kind of missed on some tackles. We saw him had the 2-pick game that won a game for us last year. So I want to see how not just him. I want to see everybody. Perkins, to me, has to learn better as far as the defense. Love the true freshman there, learning and trying to get his way on the field. And you got the vet in Hill there, so I love it. And the guy name was Richard Leonard, by the way.
Yes,
Leonard.
thank you.
Yeah,
Look
Richard
at
Leonard.
that guy.
Oh my
Golly.
God, Richard Leonard. How
So
did I not
that
remember
was the
him?
guard, so y'all can't call us out and say we don't know it's Richard Leonard. So, but go ahead.
Oh,
No, I was just going to say that I'm glad it gives a safety net to Sharif. Sharif is still a freshman. You can be the most talented freshman in the world. You're still a freshman. So you're going to have some things that you're going to have to learn. And it makes sure that it's just not all on him. As frustrated as we were last year with like guys like Kamari Wilson in the secondary being behind Dean and Torrance, you've got to let these freshmen kind of grow. You don't want to throw somebody out there who's used to being a really good player, like a big fish in the small pond per se, and then get their confidence rocked immediately. It is hard for a young player to come back from having their confidence stunted. So it's good to have another guy there to make sure we have a safety net for Sharif Denson to kind of grow and learn into the position as he goes through the year. And I'm sure by the end of the year, you'll probably see him on the field, a good percentage of the time.
Let me add to this, guys. This very well may be Perkins' position to lose. I mean, I don't have I like Perkins tackling. I think he's very aggressive. But let's also take into account now you've got Corey Raymond running that whole secondary and coaching this unit together. So, I mean, I want to see it on the field, obviously. I want to see some improvement, but I don't think that Perkins is bad either. I think it's a good problem to have this much talent at the position to try to battle it to find the best guy.
It's not that. It's not the athleticism of the capability of doing it. When he's in position, good. To me, it's the
decision making is questionable.
Yeah, his awareness of the defense and where he's supposed to be. When he's there, he's good. But I always thought it was him learning the defense. That's why he was behind Trevez.
Well, again, and you see a lot of last year, especially, you've got a lot of guys that are trying to unlearn some bad habits.
Very much so.
And when you get into a position where you go back to like your default mode, you usually go back into some really bad habits you don't want to do. So you've had a lot of guys that were coached wrong for 2-3 years. Now they're getting coached the right way. They've still got a lot of stuff they've got to unlearn. And that's why you saw the freshmen kind of get it, because they're kind of a clean slate. Mm-hmm. They're not having to unlearn anything that they've been taught.
Yes, sir. So, guys, that's pretty much all we got this week from spring. I mean, like I said, there's not a whole lot out there right now. Things look good. Everybody, the word on Graham Mertz is he's doing really well. True leader. Obviously, we're still going to have to see it on the field. I mean, that's all that matters at the end of the day. All this is right now is just hype for lies on Twitter.
It's talking season.
Yes, sir, Wes.
If you guys haven't seen it, Armstrong, we're going to put that on our pages as far as Facebook and Twitter is concerned. But I love the energy that Armstrong is bringing to the defense. Patrick Toney wasn't he was more of a quiet guy, and Armstrong is bringing that young guy energy, and the players had him on their shoulders the other day after practice. I mean, I loved his interview. We're going to put some of those little clippets up on the page, but I like this guy. I think he's going to be a breath of fresh air.
He gets it, man. He really, really gets it. His verbiage, his terminology, just the way he talks about it is a guy that just is thinking a different defense for every opponent that we face and for the unique offenses that we face. He really seems to have a mindset for each individual opponent. And that's how you got to be, man. In today's offenses and all the wild stuff you see out there, no two opponents are the same. I mean, you're going to see a different scheme week to week. It isn't 3 yards in a cloud of dust anymore. We know that. I mean, it's, you got to be able to scheme for all these different passing concepts that are out there now. And this guy, just listening to him break it down, he gets it. And I'm really excited to see the players in his system and how they respond.
Definitely.
All right, All right, guys, that's going to do it for spring updates and whatnot. And man, it's been another great week of Gators baseball out there, except for one man who's having a little bit of a hard time and got some, information that no man ever wants to hear this week. So we're going to let CJ take it away and around the bases.
All right, so we're looking at we had a really bittersweet kind of weekend. So you go and you sweep Siena. The first night was kind of rough, and to compound that, Wyatt Langford took a pitch to the old boys, the grapefruits, and that's one place you don't want to get hit with a baseball. He tried to tough it out. I don't know how. You would have had to take me to the hospital then. But he tried to play those 2 more innings, and O'Sullivan was kind of like, "Nah, I know you're hurt. We got some bad news that he did indeed rupture a testicle,
testicle.
That's not good. Don't really have a timeline on that, but the thing right now is looking at like a month, over a month. And you kind of saw that in the game on Friday. These guys were kind of not in their right headspace. They ended up pulling it out, winning, and pitching a great game, which is something we hadn't seen us do to win a game, was really pitch. And the pitching has really stepped itself up these last few games. You sweep Siena. We take a win last night against North Florida. And again, we pitched really well last night, long enough to make sure the bats got hot. Neely's starting to get his stuff back after battling the flu, has done a good job closing. And the guys are still swinging it. Jack Caglione took back the lead in home runs with 13 on the season. He's batting .417. He's got 30 RBIs already this early in the season. Ridiculous stuff from him. Rivera is another guy who's absolutely tearing the cover off the baseball. Cade Kurland, of course, another guy who's doing it. So we're looking at a great offense, and we're going to have the great offense come through this weekend because we're playing the Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama coming off of a heartbreaking series loss to a Columbia, which is an Ivy League school. But again, it's kind of just baseball. Some nights it just doesn't go your way. So I wouldn't take Alabama for granted. But definitely we're gonna have a big series starting on a Thursday night, not starting on Friday this week, starting on Thursday. So we'll play Thursday, Friday, and Saturday against Alabama at home in Gainesville. Unfortunately, I have a wedding to attend this weekend, so I won't be there. Otherwise, I would have been there for this series as our first SEC opener against a really good Alabama team that has been ranked within the top 25 at points this year. So definitely looking forward to that one. Cheer the guys on. That's always big. You need to take a win in the series, to kind of establish where you're at in the conference. Right now, they've kind of got us at, depending on what you look at, they've got us at either, 2 or 3 or 4. I've seen some as low as 4 with LSU, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and then us kind of all fighting for those top spots. So definitely want to keep an eye on the conference race this year as it's looking to shape up to be really good. Vanderbilt's still good as ever. South Carolina's having a great season. Auburn's looking pretty good. So definitely keep your eye on that this weekend. We're going to be on TV this weekend, so you guys don't have to kind of thumb through your ESPN Plus to find the game, but we are going to be playing Alabama. I'm excited for it. If you're able to make it to the game, definitely go out there and watch us play Alabama.
Yes, sir. Pack the stadium, guys. Get out there. Like CJ said many times, should be some nice, moderately warm evenings out there. High upper 60s and whatnot. Should be some really nice days to watch a game this weekend out there as we take on the Crimson Tide. So get out there early, man, and enjoy it with your family. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode, man. Nothing else really going on in Gatorland. We're losing in the NIT right now to UCF at halftime, but that's why we don't really cover basketball much on this show right now. It's not the best of times to be a Gator basketball fan, unfortunately, and maybe next year. We'll figure out a way to work that in if maybe Mr. Golden and them figure it out and do a little better next season. But guys, with that being said, we will catch you next week with a whole bunch of new updates about spring and recruiting, and CJ will have the around the bases for you then, and hopefully we've swept on old Bama out of town. And with that being said, Wes, take us home.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys. Thankful for all your support. Like Hirsch said at the beginning of the show, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube page, please do hit the notification bell, subscribe, leave a comment. Don't forget to like as well. And on top of that, we'll be dropping our Part of the People podcast later on this week. So that's exclusively,
he said.
And said just for YouTube, so that won't be on it in the Apple or iHeartRadio or anything like that. So you're gonna need to subscribe to our YouTube page for that. So we thank you for that. And this is a podcast that support our troops. So if you're a veteran or know a veteran or a spouse of a veteran or significant other, we thank you for your service, and we thank you for your service as well for those who are spouses of service members as well. So thank you guys, and go Gators.
Go Gators.
Go Gators.